Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in Internet Shitlords. And today I'm saying some words I never ever thought I'd ever say in this channel or probably anywhere else. I'm going to talk to you about Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate 3 specifically. Now, here's the thing, right? I am not a video gamer. I don't play any video games. The only video game I play is Toon Blast, okay? So I am the least qualified person on earth to be talking about video games. And this isn't going to be a video game review or anything like that, but it's going to be talking about something about how the D&D SJWs are specifically trying to tank Baldur's Gate in multiple ways. Obviously, there are some very good video game criticisms going on in Gamergate, which has been around for a long time now, or whatever descends from that. You know, there are people who really know their video games, and know their video games as much as I know my tabletop RPGs. And those are people to go to if you want to find out if this game is good or not, because I couldn't really tell you. I don't play it. I've never played any Baldur's Gate game. I'm not going to play this one. I'll never play any future one. I like all my RPGs in tabletop, in person, rolling dice, character sheets, not on a computer screen, right? So this is in no way going to be about that. What it is going to be about, and what maybe some of these guys don't know, is that some of the people who are attacking the game Baldur's Gate, the video game Baldur's Gate, are people coming out of the D&D and tabletop RPG SJW cadre. And the question becomes, well, why, right? I mean, the first answer to that, the most fundamental answer to that, is they hate D&D. And Baldur's Gate is a D&D-based game. So that's the obvious one, just in the same way that the video game people have been attacking, the SJWs in the video game world that have been attacking video games actually hate video games, specifically the ones they're attacking, right? You can argue that, they want to replace them with a different type of thing, but that's not really true. They don't really ultimately care about that. They want to try to claim that stuff that they create is better than the stuff that is actually popular. That's true, but they don't even care about playing the games that they create. For them, everything is a symbolic victory, right? It's the idea that if my game about gay cowboys eating pudding, and I don't know if there is a tabletop RPG about gay cowboys eating pudding, but there's a tabletop RPG about, sexually questioning university professors, right? Like, that's a real thing, right? That these people created, right? And so if that is applauded, if it's lauded, if it's retweeted, if it's promoted and popularized, if it wins awards made by other SJWs or maybe even by themselves for themselves, that matters. But they don't actually care if anyone ever plays it, right? They don't care if the hobby ends up dying. After that, they'll just move on to the next thing, because these people are nothing but locusts. So that's the fundamental reason. But now, to get more to the specifics, I'm going to tell you, I think my theory of one of the reasons why they're trying to hit so hard against Baldur's Gate. And but first I'm going to tell you about some of the examples of this, right? And the first thing that came up around this video game is the fact that, and this shows you, by the way, where are they attacking from, both within and outside of the house, right? They're both inside the Wizards of the Coast and the production company, Larian, I think, or whatever, that is making Baldur's Gate. And people that aren't employees of Wizards are trying to destabilize Baldur's Gate, right? So the first thing that I heard about this was when they presented the kind of character maker for Baldur's Gate, and they found out that, and this is really funny, the average character being created, let's put it this way, which means that the majority of people were making this, but the average character being created was a white male human cleric. This is the nightmare scenario for them, right? They just despise this. And I think that was a triggering element. I don't think that was the start of it. I mean, because that just ties into the existing fact that they know that most gamers are basically normies, right? They're not they're never going to be true believers in social justice. And this just confirms the bias that the SJWs have of how evil this hobby is and has to be destroyed, because normal people play it and have normal looking characters, right? Like they had said, they actually did their own kind of shitpost on themselves and on their audience, their fans. Like when you think about how insane that is, right? It's like if imagine, like, you know, Gillette did some really insane stuff this past year for the sake of social justice, but even they didn't quite get to the point of doing like a commercial where they said, you know what, our razors are a shit product and you're evil people for having to use them in the first place, right? For liking them at all, right? Like if you get to that point, how bad is it, right? But they did this social media post where they said, we gave you all these options. You could play all these skin colors and all these races and all these classes, and this is what you choose, right? Like they were just outraged at the possibility that gamers, normal gamers, would want to play a white human, presumably straight, male cleric as their class too. Like, I mean, if it had been a half elf, half tiefling warlock, then that would have been all right with them. Although, wait till you hear news number 2, right? But the fact that it was just that, right? Like, imagine what they would react to Dark Albion, where like you can only play humans, and well, I mean, in theory, you could play a human that isn't white, because it's always possible that someone could by the 15th century be there, but you know, the vast majority of NPCs you're going to see, like 99% of them are going to be white. Unless you go fight in the Crusade, then you'll get to kill a bunch of people that aren't, you know? So you know, like imagine their reaction. This is why they despise OSR games, right? Because, you know, we don't care. This is just about historical gaming. Other games are about, you know, just having a good time. And of course, you know, a lot of people are going to play humans because they're a basically average good class to play, right? Like other races can be played with advantage to certain classes, but humans can be played with advantage to just about anything. And especially the human cleric is obviously a good solid choice. Clerics are powerful in D&D 5th edition, just like they are in Dark Albion, right? Where clerics have the power of God and are therefore much more immediately able to do powerful supernatural things than the magicians there. Magicians can do very powerful things, but not miracles, right? So, you know, that's, again, reasons why they will hate this kind of stuff. I'm pretty sure there are SJWs that think that the inherent idea of clerics is bad, right? Like, if you're going to be getting your power from a divine force, it should be some kind of demon you make a special pact with, you know, and probably have some kind of sex with or something like that, right? But praying to God? How dare you, you bigot? Anyway, so they got outraged at this and they attacked their own product and their own fan base, both things, right? Like it's just insane. And then you get this article that comes out on Collider, which is this very left-wing news site, but a fairly well-known one in SJW circles, where they're talking about Baldur's Gate, and the guy makes very harsh criticisms of Baldur's Gate. He doesn't really talk about the gameplay, right? I can't say for sure, but I saw someone else on Twitter suggesting that the guy that wrote this review probably never actually played the game at all. He just looked at the character making kit again, right? Because these guys don't care about playing games. They don't care about how a game plays, right? They don't care about that with tabletop role-playing games. They certainly won't be caring about that with online role-playing games, especially since the guy who wrote this was very clearly a tabletop role player, right? So the first thing he pointed out was that, you know, as a game, D&D is horrible. It's the worst game in the world, right? And it's the most popular game on Earth as far as RPGs are concerned in all its iterations, but even including and especially in 5th edition, you're welcome. But it's also, you know, it's the mainstream. So of course he hates that, right? And the games that he recommends instead are, again, SJW story games, right? He mentions in his article a couple of titles that make it very, very clear where his allegiances lies. It's like a dog whistle for his fellow Stalinists, right? And then he goes on to point out how horrible it is that you have tieflings in this game. Because tieflings are a biracial character. And of course, they're very badly discriminated against. And I couldn't quite get, I think his main drive, and this is something you're seeing in all literature in SJW, in SJW articles and social media posts these days. The main drive is still, it's awful that biracial people are discriminated against, right? But there's, at the same time, sometimes in the same article, this kind of inclination that, well, biracial people shouldn't exist to begin with because there's bound to be a power dynamic there, right? Like if a white man and a black woman, or a black man and a white woman, or anybody white and some other race, right, of any gender, somehow managed to have a baby, the white person is obviously evil in that equation. And so the baby is born half evil and should probably be aborted, right? This is what they're starting to work their way very, very gradually to. But you've noticed in the last year, way more of this, right? There's way more articles openly advocating, for example, that in colleges, there shouldn't be mixed race relationships, right? Like black people should not be dating white people, or vice versa. Latinos should not date white people. Nobody should date Asians. Poor Asians. Anyway, like this stuff is coming out there, right? And you can see that now we already had, and look at my past videos on the channel if you haven't looked at them, the ridiculousness of people talking about all orcs being black people, right? Like that the SJWs try to push this idea that orcs are a variant of black people. And in fact, apparently Baldur's Gate, for the sake of wokeness, already collaborated in the sense that you can't play an orc, right? I think. That's what the article seemed to imply to me. So the guy said, I'll play a tiefling instead, but then I realized that a tiefling is horribly oppressed in the setting, and this is very bad. And also, they're half human and half something else. So that suggests that they're like black people too. So apparently in the game, if you're playing a straight white human male, you're evil. But if you're playing anything else, any other race at least, that's actually a racist symbol for some other real life race, right? So that's evil too. So you see how you're screwed no matter what you do in this game of theirs. And you'd hope that this is what these people, what the people making the games would figure out, that there's no appeasing these people. Like, what should Wizards and the makers of Baldur Gate do about these complaints that they're generating about, how apparently tieflings are racist now, all of a sudden. And the third one that I forgot to mention, the body types, right? They said you can't make a morbidly obese female character in this game, because that's what everybody wants to play. I could tell you what they should do about all of these three complaints. Nothing. You should do nothing, Wizards of the Coast. You should do nothing, creators of Baldur's Gate. You should, in fact, bring back orcs, because it's stupid not to have them, unless there's some other good reason. But if you got rid of them because orcs are just a metaphor for black people, no, they fucking aren't. Look at my videos, right? This is just them making fresh demands every time, right? Now, first it was orcs, now it's tieflings. They're already mentioning drow. Next it's going to be gnomes, right? Or whatever, right? Halflings, right? That everything to them is going to be evil until they've destroyed everything. Again, they are locusts, right? Their only goal is to deconstruct into oblivion and leave nothing behind until all of Western civilization is gone. That's what they want to achieve, okay? So what you should do is tell them to fuck off, realize who your real audience is, and realize what your real audience wants. If the average of your real audience wants white male clerics, human clerics, then that's what you aim for. That's what you make the product for. You don't get rid of the other options, because of course that's just an average. And there's going to be lots of people who will be interested in playing a lot of stuff. But you don't go to war against the 80% of your audience for the sake of the 8%. Right, for the sake of that little group of fuckers that nobody likes. Nobody likes them. None of the people playing your game like them. So at the end, you're going to end up having to choose between losing 80% of your players to keep and to satisfy those shrill little bitches on Twitter, or you're going to have to choose to satisfy the mainstream and let them say mean things about you, and nothing happens. Nothing will happen to you. If you stand up to them, nothing will happen to you except maybe you'll sell more product. I promise you. It's worked for me, right? So that's what you should do. Now, what they're probably going to do, well, I'm betting that eventually, maybe it won't happen in Baldur's Gate 3. Maybe in Baldur's Gate 3, they'll just get rid of the tiefling. I don't know. But Baldur's Gate 4, or sooner or later, there's going to be a version of the game where you will be forbidden from playing a white human. That's going to happen. It'll eventually happen because that's the average. And what these people want is to destroy whatever the average is, right? To say, well, if that's what most people like, that must be evil because our entire culture is evil according to them and must be destroyed. So we must force these people not to be able to play that. And you can't really do that in the tabletop version, right? Because, you know, they at least for now, they can't bring in police to arrest you for playing a game where you play a white male human, right? But in the video game, that's pretty easy to do. You get rid of the skins or whatever, and either you don't have humans at all, or you have every variety of humans except white males. Maybe if you also add options for sexual orientation, you can have trans males and gay males, but not straight white males. Maybe that's what they'll do. But they're going to keep collaborating because they're idiots. Because a lot of their own people, like I said, the first assault in Baldur's Gate happened from inside the house. It happened from the people working at Wizards and working at this company that's doing the developing for them, right? So, and a lot of the motivation is because it's intentional, right? They chose to do this because of their bigger agenda of taking over and ultimately destroying Wizards of the Coast. And here's where we get to the final important reason why. Mike Merlis, right? Mike Merlis, who was the lead designer of 5th edition of D&D, the most popular version of D&D ever, apparently, he is despised by the SJWs. Even though he's really I swear to God, he's like a moderate Hillary Democrat, right? Like he's a left coast liberal of the classic kind, right? But they despise him because he dared to employ me, among other things, right? He made me a consultant on D&D 5th edition, but more importantly, because he made 5th edition a success. That wasn't supposed to happen. 4th edition was supposed to be the culmination of their version of what D&D should be like, and it was supposed to bankrupt the product. Those were the two goals at the same time. Because remember, SJWs hate D&D. So their goal was for 4th edition to be an edition that killed everything good about D&D, that they could then pretend was the perfection of D&D, and that then would leave D&D bankrupt so it would never appear again. So that these stupid story games that they make would seem more significant. Not because any more people are going to be playing them, but because the entire hobby would have been diminished. But Mike Merlis didn't play ball. He hired people that actually like gaming to do the consulting. He listened to them. He implied certain things. He forced people to write certain ways. And a very good game came out of it, right? And so because of that, they despise him, and they've been trying to get him fired from Wizards ever since. And at one point, it turned out, or last year, that Mike Merlis is no longer the head designer of Dungeons and Dragons, which they already considered a very important victory, even though their own guy, the person they want to take over in his place, didn't get the job yet. But I'm sure they're working on it. But then they found out he's not fired. He was working on Baldur's Gate. He's connected to the Baldur's Gate project. He's like the supervising, trying to make sure that it will also do well. And so that means obviously all of these attacks that you're going to see on Baldur's Gate 3 are going to be a combination. I'm sure there's going to be some that'll be the traditional video game reporters. The Gamergate people will know who those are because they're the common names. But if you see people showing up that you haven't seen before, doing these SJW attacks on your video game, they're coming from the tabletop industry, and it's because they despise Mike Merlis, right? That's the reason that they're going so hard they're going to try so hard to destroy Baldur's Gate, to wreck it, to make sure it doesn't sell well, or to force the people running it to make huge compromises. There's Meatball, by the way. What are you doing? Hey. Watch it. You're going to knock over my books, and that's going to cause a coffee disaster. We've seen this show before, Meatball. We know what you're doing, okay? You got to get your act together, Meatball. You got to reconsider your life. All right. Anyway, so yeah, those people, they're coming after the game. They're going to try to break it or force them to change the game into something that they will like and no one will want to play. That's the idea. So I guess that's it for today. If you like this video, if this is the first time you're watching, because it might be, because I mean some people that only are into video games might be watching this, feel free to check out the rest of my videos. Most of them are about tabletop RPGs. But you might find them very interesting because they're all about, well, mostly, except for a couple of reviews, about the culture war. And yeah, subscribe, like the video, share the video everywhere, especially where it'll piss people off. And be sure to, keep checking in. If you really want to support me, I've got a Patreon page and a PayPal page, but the best way to support me is to buy my products, stuff like the awesome Dark Albion setting, the Old School Companion, which is full of medieval authentic stuff you can apply into your D&D game, and my other main books, but also check out in the link in the description below the RPG Pundit Presents series, which has now 103 issues. They're short PDF supplements that you can use to ramp up your OSR or D&D or tabletop RPG game, ranging from all kinds of stuff like adventures, sourcebook, magic items, monsters, all sorts of weird stuff, and that you can plug in. They're compatible. They're OSR basically, which means that they're compatible with any edition of D&D, and yeah, you're bound to find in 103 issues. You're bound to find something you like, and they cost between 99 cents to $4.99. So it's like you're buying me a coffee, but you're also getting something that hopefully you'll be able to use, ranging from weird fantasy to gonzo fantasy to very traditional historical adventuring with, based on traditional myth and legends and magic as the people of the Middle Ages understood it. That's about it for today. Currently smoking Lorenzetti Horn plus Argento Natural. Take care, everyone. Say goodbye, Meatball. Say goodbye, Meatball. Meatball, say goodbye. Goodbye.